Will we ever know what killed Dale Earnhardt? I believe we showed you what killed Dale Earnhardt, but it will not be a simple single factor event because it wasn't a single factor cause.
One surprise to many was the role that Ken Schrader's car played. That contact did three things. It applied initial load to the lower left lap belt, repositioned Earnhardt inside the cockpit, and changed the angle of his car to what is called a critical angle.
A contact which produces a kinematic response way over to the right side so that the head is looking towards the floor, and then a response which carries you forward and swings you around into that position with the helmet rotated forward, produces a contact to the left rear portion, the left back portion of the head in just that fashion.
It now appears that part of the blame may rest with Dale Earnhardt himself. The routing of the 5-point safety belt in the car was unconventional but had proven effective in the past, protecting him in many accidents.
There were many times that we had conversations about his cockpit area, his seat belt arrangement, and Dale was Dale Earnhardt. He'd wink and say, "I'm going to be okay, don't worry about me."
The changed angle produced changed directions of pull around structures which made that less than optimum if you were trying to say, I need to get the best routing possible.
If the seat belts are mounted and according to the instructions, they will not fail. I said that on the 23rd, I say it today, and I'll say it 10 years from now. You know, over 2 million of those seat belts have been produced, and there's not been any failures like that. So it was an improper installation, and I'm being blamed for it, and it's not fair.
Still, the question remains, why doesn't NASCAR make immediate changes, mandating drivers to wear head and neck restraint devices and setting standards for the installation of the safety belt system?
There's no magic bullet that's going to come out and we're going to use this and we're going to save every driver's life. That's just not going to happen. It's going to be a long process over many, many years.
And that process has already begun. Dr. Sicking has begun extensive research on the accidents of Tony Roper, Adam Petty, and Kenny Irwin. And keeping in mind that Dale Earnhardt hit the wall with a force of 62 Gs, he said that initial research shows that the Adam Petty and Kenny Irwin accidents were much more severe in terms of deceleration, Bill.
Thank you, Marty. Now, two of the people most of us wanted to hear from following the briefing on Tuesday, Dale Earnhardt Jr. and car owner Richard Childress. Now, Dale Earnhardt Jr. declined our TNT request for an interview here at Bristol, but did meet with the media this past Wednesday at Darlington. Marty talked to car owner Richard Childress just a few hours ago.
I'm real satisfied with how NASCAR handled it. I think they did a great job, really. A lot of people, they were scrutinized for being, you know, kind of secretive about everything, but I think they handled it in a real professional manner. Once everything was released, I believe everybody kind of understood why it was handled the way it was.
What was said that when I left there that it took a lot more than any one incident for it to be a tragedy. It took several things lining up at one time for it to be such a tragedy, and I don't think any one single event, you know, like they said, it took a lot of things to happen to make it happen like it was.
The discussion of Dale Earnhardt's separated seatbelt has been full of energy and emotion. Some critics claim that NASCAR is using Simpson race products as a scapegoat. Others say Earnhardt wore his belts his way because that's what worked for him. The separated belt appears to have frayed relationships between two longtime associates, NASCAR and Bill Simpson. In separate interviews on Friday, I spoke with NASCAR President Mike Helton here at Bristol, while Mr. Simpson spoke to our TNT crew in Indianapolis.
The perception is that it's a Cold War between us, but the truth of the matter is NASCAR never, ever implied or stated that we felt there was anything wrong with a Simpson product. We did launch an investigation because we had a separated belt. And everybody agrees that the belt separated in the accident, including Simpson products.
Seat belts were installed incorrectly. They've been warned that they were installed incorrectly. NASCAR has an inspection system that's pretty thorough. They allowed the car to run. I told them that one day that would bite Earnhardt. The day came it did bite Earnhardt, and then they pointed the finger at me, and consequently the whole world has come down on my head and my company's head, and we're not responsible. NASCAR is responsible.
And I don't believe that Bill Simpson told Dale Earnhardt about the installation, because I know no one from Simpson Products ever told NASCAR about any of that. No one, not Bill or anyone representing Simpson Products, ever told us about dumping, ever told us there was a possibility a belt could separate, and they never addressed installation of the belts in cars, and particularly the 3-car. And Richard Childers says that no one did to him either, or his crew chiefs that worked for Dale over the years. And I believe Richard Childers.
I've had a lot of conversations with a lot of drivers, and they're very supportive of me. However, they're not able to say too much in public for fear of retribution from NASCAR. And NASCAR does that. That's their MO. And I suspect if somebody's using Simpson products next year, it won't be good.
Evidence is out in the garage area. Tonight's race, a majority of belts in those cars are made by Simpson Products. And if we wanted to do something about that, I think we could. But that's not the issue here. Our effort was to find as much information and facts and present those, which we did Tuesday. It was not to exonerate anyone or not to point blame at anyone. And that's the truth of it all.
Now, in the briefing on Tuesday, and in even greater detail in the 324-page report, NASCAR has pledged to, among other things, add data recorders to the Winston Cup cars beginning in 2002, use computer models to explore race car rigidity, examine crashes, and expand the study of soft walls. They will work with teams and outside experts to strengthen the seats and cockpit area. They will add a medical liaison to make certain every track has the latest and greatest medical equipment, and that equipment should be and must be on site. And they will work with drivers in the area of head and neck restraint systems. NASCAR currently recommends but does not require such a device. Last week at Michigan, 41 of the 43 Winston Cup starters used some type of head and neck restraint system. Now, to be sure you're totally informed, look at this. CART requires a head and neck restraint device on ovals, but 2 weeks ago rescinded a rule that was going to require them on road and street circuits. CART does recommend them on those courses. The Indy Racing League, the governing body that sanctions the Indianapolis 500, recommends but does not require a head and neck restraint system. Formula One does not require a restraint system at this time, but does plan to make it mandatory next season. Friday here at Bristol, I spoke with driver Jeff Burton, a leader in the safety movement in the Winston Cup garage. I spoke with driver Kyle Petty. His son Adam was killed in a crash at Loudon, New Hampshire 15 months ago. And as you've seen, I also spoke with NASCAR President Mike Helton. We covered at length a variety of topics. Here are some of their thoughts, among others, beginning with the head and neck restraint system.
We're not going to mandate them, but for all the reasons we've always stated, but there is some value, and until we learn all the answers, we can't stop.
Are helmets mandatory in football? Yes. Are shoulder pads mandatory? Yes. Why? Because it makes it a safer sport, okay? But, you know, everything that's safe, all drivers don't want to use.
If you choose not to wear it, that's your decision. The only person you're harming is yourself. If you don't have a carbon monoxide detector in your house and you die of carbon monoxide poisoning, is that the federal government's fault because they didn't make you put it in your house?
Data recorders in the cars beginning next season. Why not beginning next week?
The availability of enough of them, and exactly what do you do with them once you put them in there. It's simple to bolt another piece to the car. But the availability of them for the Cup and the truck and the Busch cars, what do you do with it, who manages all of that. It's one thing to collect data, but using it once you collected it is as important as getting it.
A lot of people seem to think after 3 deaths in a race car, NASCAR did very little. And then we lost Dale Earnhardt and NASCAR did a lot. Do you believe that's what happened?
No. Do I personally believe that's what happened? No, I don't. Previously, they had kind of investigated things, and you know, I was very satisfied with what they told me and what I saw from Adam's accident. Dale's accident was different than Adam's. Okay, it was different, and you know, I was in conversation with Kevin Triplett and with Mike Helton and signed over Adam's autopsy reports to NASCAR so that they could compare that, and I'm sure Kenny did, and Kenny's family did probably the same thing, because, you know, like I told Mike and those guys, our goal was to make it safer for all these guys out here. I think this takes our sport to another level, though, because now in the future, when an accident happens, whether it's a fatal accident or whether it's an accident where, you know, bodily injury does happen, like my accident in '91 with a broken leg, I think NASCAR will continue to go down this road and investigate and say, how can we do things different? How can we make things better? So I think it's a big deal for us.
The drivers we've talked to today want to turn this toward the future. Is that what NASCAR would like to do at this
Absolutely.
point?
Absolutely.
No matter how much we pray and no matter how much we want to bring these guys back, we can't. We have to learn from that, and we have to move on. And to be critical, sometimes you get so resentful and so narrow-minded by being critical that you don't see that people are trying to work. You don't see that things are trying to move forward.
It is true that they haven't changed a rule, but it's not true that they haven't changed and that they haven't tried to make it better and apply the things that they've learned.
Have they done it fast enough?
No, but there's no way they could do it fast enough, because when it comes to safety, it's got to happen right now. It can't wait till 4 weeks from now, because someone's going to wreck here tonight.
The point of it is what can we do going forward? And the first thing is to find out whatever we need to do to not have another belt separate. And we've asked Simpson Products to help us with that. And in the meantime, all the information and all the efforts that went through the investigation give us a lot of working tools to look at crush zones, to look at occupant restraints, to look at head and neck restraints, and to look at that whole area. And it's at the most monumental point it's ever been in our history, and we're not going to let that slip away.
Benny Parsons won the Winston Cup Championship in 1973, the Daytona 500 in 1975. Your thoughts?
Well, Bill, I think that NASCAR did an awfully good job with this report. I think the fellows have learned so much because of Dale Earnhardt's crash, and they had so many cameras pointed at him. They had the telemetry box in the car. There's so much information there for them to learn from. But the one thing about the 4 drivers that have died, they all hit one thing, a wall, a hard wall that did not give. Now, NASCAR, they are working on soft walls. They said in the report they were working on soft walls. They have been for about a year. I just ask them to please hurry with that situation. Throw more money at the soft walls, because, after all, I think it all can't be solved with the race cars. I think we've got to look at what these race cars are hitting and make that a softer blow. And I think the drivers, with the other devices, head and neck support, everything else, I think they'll be much better off if we just soften the blow.
Each week, Wally Dallenbach contributes to our pre-race show. He's in the booth getting ready for the Sharpie 500. Wally, your thoughts?
Well, Bill, I commend NASCAR and the steps they're taking to move this thing forward. They're trying to make the sport safer, but it's not going to be 100% safe. But before they go too far down the road, they need to look in their backyard in the rule book. They need to make it mandatory that we wear helmets, uniforms, and gloves. I want NASCAR to take the lead on safety. I want them to do the investigation and make the sport safer for me as a driver, because if we leave it up to the teams, it ain't going to work. If it was worth 0.2 of a second to make our cars safer, then all the teams are going to do it. I also have to disagree with one thing Jeff Burton says. He says, well, it's only going to hurt the person, it's only going to hurt yourself if you don't use the safety equipment. Well, that's not true, because when the driver dies, the family, the fans, and NASCAR has to deal with it.
Thanks, Wally. We're joined here on the War Wagon by Rusty Wallace. I know in a moment you'll have to leave for driver intros, but Dale Earnhardt was a competitor, your rival, and your friend. Your thoughts on the investigation, Rusty?
Well, nothing's going to bring Dale back. There's no doubt about that. I thought the investigation went really well. I thought it was really detailed, probably more detailed than the people could stand to listen to for a couple hours, but it really explained everything, how hard he hit the wall, how he hit the wall. They talked about belt separation. They talked about all kind of things. I guess the verdict's still out. Why did the belt separate? People are still trying to figure that out. I didn't get a total good feeling about that reason. But all in all, I thought it was a really good situation NASCAR did.
Okay, we're going to let you go because we know driver intros have started. If you get a chance, come on back and we'll continue
thanks a lot,
this
guys.
discussion. Rusty Wallace here on the War Wagon with us at Bristol. When we come back, we'll turn our attention back to tonight's big race, the Sharpie 500 for the NASCAR Winston Cup Series here at the Bristol Motor Speedway. Stay with us.